why it breaks my heart to see trans kids across the country lose out on these opportunities.
Not gonna get any complaints on me about that. I can't even believe that had to be signed, because this shit has never been a thing.
With this executive order, the war on women's sports is over.
This video is brought to you by PDS Debt, brought to you by PDS Debt. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish I'd have known about PDS Debt a long time ago, because I do know, believe it or not, how easy it is to get into debt. The hardest thing is to get out of debt with a great solution, and that's why PDS Debt is here to help. So if you feel the burden of credit card bills, personal loans, or medical debt, and it's like the money is working more for the lender than it is for you, don't worry, PDS Debt got you covered. PDS Debt does more than just help you manage your debt. They empower you to take control. Using their platform, they go beyond the numbers to understand your unique financial situation and craft a personalized plan designed just for you. No more cookie cutter solutions, just a clear path to financial freedom that fits your lifestyle. And here's the best part. There is no minimum credit score required. Whether your credit is bad or fair, they're here to help you save money, to pay off your debt faster, and to start putting money back where it belongs, in your savings account. So make this year your year to take control of your debt. Get a debt-free analysis right now at pdsdebt.com/Tatum. It only takes 30 seconds to do it. That's pdsdebt.com/Tatum, pdsdebt.com/Tatum. You can make sure you get the link in the description section. Let's get into this. Donald Trump bans men from women's sports. And I do not understand how we all are not in lockstep and in unison related to this. Let's go to the first clip of Donald Trump's executive order. And Riley Gaines, the beautiful Riley Gaines, is right there, right next to Donald Trump. She's going to go down in history as one of the greatest women that's fighting for women's rights. Can you believe that fighting for women's rights used to be a liberal thing? Remember the movement of feminists and women deserve proper treatment in the workforce and all this other stuff. And how did they turn from that to now women don't have no rights because a man want to be a woman? A man has now somehow wiggled his way into usurping authority over women again. And they will fight that a man can put his penis in the face of a woman in the locker room. They will fight for it. They will fight for the extermination and the unaliving of the unborn. They will fight for it. They will die for it. For a man to be able to bludgeon your daughter, fight for it. What kind of crazy people are these that they'll fight that women wouldn't even reproduce, when that's one of the greatest gifts women have, is that you can bring about life. You know how only people, everybody under the sound of my voice came out of a woman. Every one of y'all. You wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be here, they wouldn't be here, they all wouldn't be here, everybody downstairs wouldn't be here. If it wasn't for a woman birthing them, that is almost the closest thing you can get to God, is to create life. That's a blessing from God, to make you to be able to create life. And y'all want to do away with it and reproductive rights, and you want to eliminate that instead of empowering women to respect themselves enough to have children with men that love them. And then when they're in a crisis, how about you help the woman in the crisis so she can give life? Not tell her the crisis is too big and insurmountable that she should end life. You should help her continue life. That's respecting and loving women. Y'all got me preaching today. And if a man is confused on who he is, that ain't got nothing to do with young women. You can be confused at your house on the couch with popcorn in your hand watching sports. You can't be confused running in a track meet, beating everybody by 30 yards. Thank God, thank you, Lord, that I don't have any daughters. I'd be in jail. The first person that boy run around the track, beat my girl and pump his fist in the air and stand on the podium, this would be the first time I go to jail. You ain't finna do that. Not in front of me. Riley Gaines, I don't know her daddy. But I don't think I could be as measured as him. I stand right in front of the door. All right, bro, you got to come through me to get in there. What y'all want to do? What y'all want to do today? You want to go swimming? We can go swimming, all right. You ain't finna go in there. Think you going to pull your genitals out in front of my daughter. Brad, woo! Roll the clip.
We've gotten the woke lunacy out of our military. And now we're very importantly getting it out of women's sports. That's taking place very strongly. So in recent years, the radical left has waged an all-out campaign to erase the very concept of biological sex and replace it with a militant transgender ideology. You've heard a little bit about this, haven't you, huh? Just a little bit? Does anybody agree with them? No. Would be not a good thing to say yes right here. Female athletes have been forced onto the front lines, and men claiming to be girls have stolen more than 3,500 victories, that's a lot, and invaded more than 11,000 competitions designed for women. Last year, a male cyclist posing as a woman competed in the 800-mile Arizona Trail Race, a very big deal in cycling, and obliterated the women's course record by nearly 5.5 hours. Sounds like a lot, doesn't it, huh? 5.5 hours, so, but you have to hear the weightlifting records. You think that's bad. The weightlifting's worse. In 2023, a man in women's powerlifting broke 2 world records and outlifted his closest female opponent in one event by 440 pounds. And they continue to defend themselves, Mr. Congressman. You know that, right? They continue to defend themselves. We hope they continue onward because I don't think we can lose a race. This was one of the big reasons that we all won, and it's one of the big reasons that we had a record, a landslide like they haven't seen before, very often anyway. And who could forget last year's Paris Olympics where a male boxer stole the women's gold medal after brutalizing his female opponent so viciously that she had to forfeit just after 46 seconds, and she was a championship fighter. And actually, they had 2 women or 2 people that transitioned, and both of them won gold medals, and they won them very convincingly. But all of that ends today because with this executive order, the war on women's sports is over.
All right, love that. I love it. Let me do something real quick, and then we're going to go to the CNN poll. So just as a little quick informational piece here, the funding implications, just so you know, is that educational institutions that allow transgender athletes to compete on women's teams risk losing federal funding. The Department of Education is directed to investigate non-compliant schools, potentially leading to a withdrawal of federal support. So that's the way they can do it, because schools are run on a state level, but they also have support and funding from the federal government. So what Donald Trump is doing is he can't stop, technically with an executive order, he can't stop them from doing it. What he can do is stop the funding that they have for these schools to do it and set the precedent that some of the states that want to acquiesce or be involved in this can also implement a very similar executive order or law or policy. Title IX, it says the order redefines Title IX protections to apply strictly based on biological sex assigned at birth, excluding gender identity considerations. Because I just think our country done went down a bad path. There are people who are struggling with this. I get it. They deserve the help that they need. They don't deserve to be coerced into the lie. It's a clip that I played. I want y'all to get this clip for me. And I'm going to talk about this real quick. But there's a clip that I played or shared on my story. This woman said the most profound thing that I've heard. I may just paraphrase what she said. Let me just paraphrase. Maybe in post-production we'll play the clip. This woman said the most profound thing, and I want y'all to understand this when it comes to transgender stuff. She made reference that there are people that's going to fight this to the death, to stand up and fight that transgender kids keep getting transitioned, puberty blockers, because you know why? Because they victimize their own kids and they cannot live with it. They cannot, because if they have to acquiesce or acknowledge that at any point that it's wrong to transition kids, that they have committed a human rights violation against their own children, and they will never, ever be able to live with themselves or admit it. So they're going to always fight a fight, even if it's wrong. This is not it. Let's play this clip and then we'll go back to it. But what she said, she put it in perspective, and it's so true that they sold these kids a bill of goods that has no value. They sold these kids down the river. They promised them and told them that you can transition and you can do all of this irreversible stuff and the world is going to treat you just like a girl. And an executive order says Not so fast. The country overwhelmingly believe that this is wrong. And these kids have done stuff irreversibly, and they'll never be accepted as the other gender, and their parents lied to them and didn't protect them, and their parents can't live with it. So those are your activists that will continue to be activists even though they're wrong, even though they know they're silly. Roll the clip.
I think these numbers are really illuminating on this topic because I just think there's such a clear trend among the American public. So transgender female athletes in women's sports, only 18% of the country says that they should be, in fact, allowed to participate in women's sports. Compare this to the opposition. I mean, my goodness gracious, 79%. You rarely get 79% of the country to agree on anything, but they do, in fact, agree on the idea of opposing transgender female athletes in women's sports. But it's not just the here and now, Laura. It's not just the here and now. What we're actually seeing is a trend on this particular issue, and it's going in the direction of opposition. So take a look here. Okay, transgendered female athletes, and amongst those Americans who oppose them in women's sports, back in 2021, it was 62%. A majority, but, you know, not anywhere close to a ginormous majority, right? A clear majority, but not a ginormous majority. But then again, you look here in 2025, you see it at 79%. So it's not just that the majority of Americans are opposed to transgender female athletes in women's sports. It's that the opposition has become considerably larger in just the last 4 years.
Why? Because it's been proliferated. They've been winning all these awards, and people can see it, that it's clearly unfair.
Not gonna get any complaints on me about that. I can't even believe that had to be signed because this should have never been a thing. I totally agree with that one, but I'm not gonna let that distract me from the fact that Elon Musk literally controls how the federal government pays people. Let's stay focused.
Yeah, I would say that too. I always go back to that one swimmer that, as a man, the swimmer was like in 400th place, and then when she trans to a woman, was in first place, and how sad all those parents were because their daughters were training and felt like they were cheated. So yeah, I'm with this one as well.
Yeah, Leah Thomas, you're referencing. And the order also requires the immediate enforcement of these rules. Now, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt also spoke to the press before the president signed the executive order, and she said it ends the disgusting, quote, disgusting betrayal of women and girls, by the previous administration, end quote. She added that the Olympics and the NCAA college sports stand to be impacted. Let's hear more from the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
I think kids have already been exposed to discrimination, especially young women and girls who have been forced to shower in locker rooms with biological men, who have been forced to compete on playing fields with biological men, which is incredibly unfair and unsafe, and again, an incredibly unpopular policy. He does expect the Olympic Committee and the NCAA to no longer allow men to compete in women's sports.
I also do want to say, Morgan, though, this is a real nothing burger because less than 0.02% of, I think, trans men, trans women, trans people participate in sports at an Olympic level. But one is too many.
Yeah,
there shouldn't be no men playing women's
burger.
sports.
I wouldn't say
it's not a nothing burger, but it's not like it's not like a bunch of men are playing women's sports is what I'm saying.
Maybe they're getting out ahead of the issue before it becomes that much of a bigger
That's
issue.
what I was ready to say. And then what's that white?
The question is, and I told somebody on the show yesterday, why don't we hear the reverse? Why don't we hear it being a problem that women who transition to men are in sports? Because they don't win. They don't have a chance. Women competing against men is a no-no. Men competing against women is a win. And so transgender men or women, I don't know which one you call it, but if you're a woman, you transition to a man, nobody cares if you play sports because you ain't going to make the team anyway. You ain't never going to break a single record. There is never will be a case in the history of the world, as long as I'm alive and long as Jesus is on the throne, that there will be a woman who transitions to being a man and break a record in men's sports. It ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. It won't happen. But every man, I squatted 455 for 2 just the other day on my thing. I could probably do 500. I need to stretch a little bit so I get a little deeper on the squat, but I do 455. And I'm a regular person. I mean, I'm a little stronger than average, but I'm a regular person. The female squat record is probably like 600 pounds. If I put knee wraps on and I train a little bit, I smash that record. That's in the world. I think Zuby beat the world record. He was a guy. He was making a mockery of them. He beat the deadlifting record. He said he's a girl, he identifies as a woman, and he deadlifts like 500 to beat the record. Do y'all really want to go down this path? Because we stopped something that could have taken place in the next 15 years. I think 15 years from now, we will be having male transgender people in the WNBA. And they'll be dunking. They'll be getting sponsorships. And the number one, I put my life on this. If we did not stop this from happening, the number one WNBA player would be a man. I put my life on it. You get a person transition, they'll dominate these women. And then some people, mark my word, 15, 20 years from now, some people, I don't even think that long, but I'm giving it a very conservative, broad perspective. Some people will transition just to do that. If you a dude, you ain't got nothing to lose. You like, look, I'm gonna play like a girl so I can make $15 million in endorsements. And then I'll transition out of it when I retire. Who's gonna stop you? You don't need to have to take hormones. You just have to say, I identify. Y'all know these people silly. Do we got a clip of that girl? I want to play the clip of the woman. I want to play a clip of this woman. This is the woman I was saying. When I first watched it, I was like, what is she talking about? But then as she continued to speak, I'm like, whoa. She just said something that I think people are missing or they're not talking about it enough. Roll the clip.
May not have thought of is that there's a lot of people who can't move on this because that's the people who've transitioned their own children. So those people are going to be like, the Japanese soldiers who were on Pacific Islands and didn't know the war was over.
Right.
They've got to fight forever. This is another reason why this is the worst social contagion that we'll ever have experienced. A lot of people have done the worst thing that you could do, which is to harm their children irrevocably because of it. Those people will have to believe that they did the right thing for the rest of their lives, for their own sanity and for their own self-respect. So they'll still be fighting. And each one of those people destroys entire organizations and entire friendship groups. And now you can't talk truth in front of that person, and you can't. Because what you're saying is, you as a parent have done a truly, human rights abuse level of awful thing to your child that cannot be fixed. There are specific individuals who are really actively against women's rights here, and it's not known why they are, but I happen to know through the back channels that it's because they've trans their child. And so those people will do anything for the entire rest of their lives to destroy me and people like me, because people like me are a standing reproach to them. I don't want to be. I'm not talking directly to them. I don't spend my time bitching about them. But the fact is that just simply by saying we will never accept natal males in women's spaces, well, it's their son that we're talking about. And they've told their son that he can get himself sterilised and destroy his sexual function and women will accept him as a woman. And if we don't, there's no way back for them and their child. They've sold their child a bill of goods that they can't deliver on. And I'm the one who has to be bullied to try to force me to deliver on it. So those people are going to be the people who will keep this bloody movement going, I'm sorry to say, because they've everything to lose.
No truer words have been said. No truer words. This is the true thing. And that's the same thing with Democrats. That's the same thing with this trans issue, with the gay stuff, with feminism. They've sold their soul to the devil, and they have to keep fighting a good fight on their, it's the bad fight, but they feel like it's the good fight because they have now made their whole identity this. Do you think that D Wade, basketball player that transitioned his kid, do you think he can ever be honest about the ramifications of transgenderism stuff? He can never do it because he was a part of manipulating his own son to lie to him and tell him he can be a girl and society is going to respect and see and view and appreciate him as a girl. He'd have been better off just being a guy and going through therapy. But he transitioned that boy. And I said this a long time ago, hope to God I'm alive to see it happen. I wish it wasn't going to happen, but I hope I'm alive to see it happen because I said this in front of the world. When you're a Dwayne Wade's son, you got to be 6'6", 6'5". I think Dwayne Wade got to be like 6'6". And Gabrielle Union ain't short. So the boy got to be 6'5", 6'6". The world know you transitioned. So anybody that ever thought they'll be attracted to you at any point know you really a boy. So they already screwed you that way. Then you going to be 6'5". The average woman is probably what, 5'4", 5'5", 5'6" maybe? I only think the average woman is 5'6". I think they're shorter than 5'6". But just say the average woman is 5'6". You at the bar hanging out with your girls. They all this tall. And then D Wade's son gonna be like this. And when you trans, your hands don't stop growing. You gonna have hands like a man. The body is skinny, but the hands and the feet is grown. Big old hands. Hey, how you doing? Jada, whatever her name is. What is that? Josiah, Zariah, what? Zaya. Zaya or Zaya? One of them. Hey, shake your hand like this. Hey. You like, dang, that girl got some big old hands, bro. What's going on with this? Hey, baby, I want to buy you some shoes. What size shoes you wear? 23. She got 23 shoe. What you a monster? Then if you don't cut the wang off, now you got that. Now you see a man and you gotta tell a man, hey, I ain't really who you think I am. Now, when you 6, you don't know that's the reality. When you grown, you know that's your kid's future, and you still sold them down the creek. You know that Zaya is going to struggle with dating and relationships and identifying as a woman. And why would you do your son like that? Because everybody gonna have children. They're gonna go to birthing classes. Probably most of his friends. They're gonna go to birthing classes. They're gonna get married. How many trans people you know are married? And it ain't too many people want to be involved in that. And then let me tell you this. How many trans people are married because just because you transition don't mean you're still not struggling with identity. So you act like these people are transitioning and they're healed. No, they're still struggling. They dress up like a girl and they flaunt their stuff, but when they go home, that what they think they are ain't what it look like in the mirror. I'm telling you, man, I've had my times where, at least a few times, somebody hit on me and I thought it was a girl. And they were kind enough to be honest and say, I'm a trans person. Okay. Now, I don't want nothing to do with that. But I feel bad for them because that's going to be the response from 90% of men, unless they got a fetish or something. But 90% of men are like, you put the Rolls Royce symbol on there and you ain't really a Rolls Royce, you're a Cadillac. Yeah, you're going to trick people like that. I came for the Rolls Royce. I didn't come for the Cadillac. So even though you look like a Rolls Royce, you really a Cadillac. So how you expect me to want to get involved in this, okay? I'm here for a woman, but you really a man. Like, what do you want me to do with that? You can be nice all you want, you can be all this stuff, but there's logistical things that we can't just work out here, right? You can't have kids. And I would argue that most men want children. What do I look like taking you to my parents' house? And my dad looking at me like, what's happening here? I'm telling you, even if men want to be open to it, the society, bro, you can't do it. But you won't tell your son that or your daughter that. You let them go through it and just be miserable. I need to get off this subject, but it's hard enough dating as a regular person. You're just a regular man or woman, and people still can't get in relationships. People playing games, you ain't making enough money, you're not tall enough, you're not smart enough, you ain't got enough swag. This person is in a phase, they out of phase. Imagine being trans. You gotta be even harder. Anyway, that ain't my fight. I wish we loved trans people enough to tell them the truth and love on them and help them. Help them. Let's help them. How do we help them? How do we get them to see who they really are? Pray with them. Maybe there's a therapy. Maybe there's sessions of counseling they can do, not to convince them that they're trans, but to convince them that they are who they are biologically and that it's okay. Like, there's got to be nuances. It's okay to feel weird on the inside. That don't mean you got to change your whole body. It's okay. Like a man, like if a man is attracted to another man, bro, you can't control that maybe, but you can control what you do with that. So ain't no different than a man being attracted to beautiful women. Some men are attracted to beautiful women. Bro, you can't sleep with all of them. So you got to control what you do with what you are attracted to. You in a position of power like a priest. You can't have, you can be attracted to women all you want, but you ain't finna have one.